Hey guys, today I'm going to be taking a look at Narcissu 10th Anniversary Anthology. This is a thought-provoking visual novel series about terminal illness, living, dying, and the relationship between those leaving and those left behind. There are no miracles, no heroes, no villains in this story. So as it says, there's 4 different visual novels in this game. I'm going to just go with the first one. Let's go ahead and do full screen. And let's start. I'm going to go ahead and pick this one first, and these are different translations. I don't really know the difference, but I think this one is a little bit better, so I'm going to just click this one, and I'll have it voiced. It's going to be Japanese voice acting, but I'm just going to read above it. On a blindingly bright day on something that skipped through way too fast. 2001, 2, 3, 30-something thousand people. From the July 2004 statistics on suicide. Spring 1996, Satsumi. True, I wasn't very healthy since I was a child. Even so, I attended elementary school just like all others, and during summer breaks I often played until I was utterly tanned. June. Shortly after my entry into middle school, the day after I had ordered a swimsuit for use the next month, my first hospitalization. On a day just before the first semester midterms, on a day when the first drops of rain were so cruelly cold. Falling from amidst the pure white of the overcast sky. Of course, the first time it happened to me, all of my classmates came to visit me almost every day. And when I was released, they even came to my house on weekends to play. But that was only the first time around. Autumn into winter, winter into spring, a vicious cycle. Hospitalization, release, clinics, and hospitalization again. Before I knew it, even the classmates I once called friends turned into acquaintances, and then into strangers. And if every changing of the season, I was being erased from their collective memory. It seems that to all those normal people, my very existence was an unpleasant fact. And so, it looks like I've been erased. I spent so many seasons, so many white overcast skies, without the want or need to converse with anybody. For that matter, my English textbook never changed from that of a first-year middle school student before the first midterms. That is where my time seems to come to an end. Early summer 2004. 8 years later, early summer 2004, summer, flowing sweat. The gigantic electronic scoreboard in the driver's license examination facility lit up all at once. My eyes and everyone else's looked for our respective numbers. 237,237. And of some 8 columns of lit text, sure enough, my examination number was shining in the midst. Clickety-clack. Nearby empty train car, perhaps thanks to the beautiful afternoon. Almost alone in that train car, I was heading back home from the examination hall. My left hand held a new traffic regulation handbook, and my breast pocket held my brand new driver's license. So now I've got a license as well. I muttered somewhat happily, but there were no strong feelings behind it. I never particularly wanted to drive a car. I never particularly had a motive for it. It was just that my colleagues and the Technical Institute both recommended that I at least get a driver's license. That night, when I told my parents I'd gotten my license, they merely replied with, "I see." And when I asked if I could borrow the car just for a test run, they instantly and curtly said just one thing: no. While I didn't really want to drive the new car or anything, the response was all too expected. Those were my parents for you. The next day, I woke with chest pain and went to the hospital. Sickness, and I generally had nothing to do with each other. Which is why I found the ER waiting room to be utterly boring. And just when I thought they were through examining me, they ordered an x-ray with some blood tests. Then they left. And again I was left waiting for so long time. I'd already polished off 3 volumes of Shonen Jump and was just about to start a 4th when they admitted me to the hospital right then and there. And it seems that my new license, which was still snugly in my breast pocket, would have to wait a long time for its turn to come. So this girl seems like she has some sort of like dire illness, like cancer or something, and she's like battling through it. She doesn't have any friends, and she can't even get a driver's license, or she can't even drive a car, I should say. So autumn 2004, right around when the all too noisy Kikadas had finally gone silent, I once again found myself in the hospital as per usual. Of course, it wasn't as if I'd been there the entire time. I came and went, a futile cycle. My first surgery was a month before. After that, I started doing the 5-minute commute to and from the hospital by moped. From then on, I was hospitalized, discharged, ordered to the clinic, and hospitalized again and again and again. Well, I still had no clue what PET or IRIS stood for. In no time at all, several months had already passed. As my appetite decreased, my medications increased. I could feel my own physical strength atrophying away. I kept imagining my legs were getting thinner. But the needle of weight scale rudely informed me it's not just your imagination, and yet I kept looking on at myself with detached interest, as if it were happening to somebody else entirely, as if I were looking at a scene on a TV or the like. My mind could not grasp what had so suddenly happened to my body. Nothing within me was telling me that this was real at all. That's why, even though it was all happening to me, I kept looking on as if something were happening to someone else far away. Winter, a day of winter, around when the Christmas trees had vanished from the streets, I was discharged home as kind of years-in treat. It seemed like an exercise in total transience, but still it made me slightly happy. I traveled back home. I had not seen in a long time in the midst of a freezing rain. Strangely enough, my entire family was there. My parents, who had never so much as talked to me, came out to meet me. It were with terribly stilted smiles. My little sister, with whom I'd never had a pleasant word, had made my favorite cream stew and fried shrimp just for me. They made me sit at the table. They peeled tangerines for me. They were cruelly kind. It was an impressive display. At this point, a little thought occurred to me about my new driver's license, which was still stuffed away in my pocket, that perhaps things would end for the license without it ever having known any use. Surrounded by a trio of stilted, strange smiles, I kept that thought as if it were someone else's business, with dissipation, ambiguity, and total disinterest. January 2005. Never mind. A new year began and I returned to the hospital. But on this day, instead of the usual 4F room, I ended up in a conference room of sorts. They took me there. And then my father and the doctors had a little talk. I joined in, while they talked to me. So this was their so-called announcement. They said I was terribly roundabout fashion, but they told me that I was going to die. I see. That was my only reply. I had no other words. It was the only thing that was left in my mouth from beginning to end. The doctor's ballpoint pens flew across the table as if in response to my words. Those were probably hospice enrollment procedures, businesslike to the last. My father was the same. So it's this simple. It was the only real thought I had. That day I was transferred from 4F to 7F, from a 6-person room to a private room. It was a little different from the other wards, this 7F. First of all, the floors were sparkling clean, and second of all, the ceiling was higher than I'd ever seen it. The rooms were very nice and had large windows from which the warm daylight streamed in as if by design. But those windows only opened a little. I tested them out, and my head would just barely fit out of one. The color of my ID bracelet had changed as well. The bracelet that I had worn ever since the first hospitalization, the one that had my name and blood type recorded on it, its color had now changed from blue to white. A high ceiling, a white bracelet, a window that would not open more than 15 centimeters. The TV program celebrated the new year and was still playing when I was transferred to the 7F. It was at the dawn of that very year that I met her for the first time.
Narcissus.
Narcissu. That's how you say it. I was saying it completely wrong.
7回.
Winter 2005, 7F. There was this place kind of like a lounge at one side of the corridor across from the nurse's station. This generally deserted place held a few couches and chairs as well as a large TV. Stupid programs commemorating the new year were still being broadcast on this 28th-inch screen. There was a girl who looked absolutely bored watching that absolutely boring TV. Short in pink pajamas, a white bracelet on her wrist just like mine. Impressively looking long hair that almost reached down to her hips. "Hey, do you find that interesting?" There was no deep purpose in that asking, simply I had nothing else to do, so I started talking to her.
別に
Not really, was her only reply to me. She didn't turn to face me at all. She kept looking with boredom at the TV as if she didn't even exist. Then don't watch it. Even as I thought this, I sat down in the chair next to her, and side by side we watched TV. Nothing else to do, nothing we could do. So we sat there silently and watched TV. New Year celebration programs as per usual, a useless array of comedians and oddities. And every so often, the MC's stupid shrill laughter resounding dryly in this white, sun-drenched lounge.
ね
Say, tell me. The girl suddenly started talking to me, but her eyes were, as always, glued to the TV screen.
えあなた
How many times is it for you now? What do you mean by that? How many times have you come here to 7F? Sorry, I have no clue what you're talking about. I see, so it's your first time then. So she'd seen my confession about her question and come to the right conclusion.
いや
Then, since there's no one else around and since it's my duty,
そういうルールな
there's
の
this rule. Nodding slightly, she explained that the rule was that someone here, 7F, should tell newcomers the truth. I knew nothing, I understood even less. As if I did not even exist, she slowly started her speech. Then listened closely. Her words spoke methodically, one by one, were a little different from the ones I'd heard from the doctors about this place. In their business-like crisp syntaxes, they told me this is a place where one waits for medical advances. This is a place where one heals one's heart, and perhaps they might have been correct in a general sense, but according to the girl, that was just a party line. The truth was that 7S was only the place the hospital was the only place in the hospital where medical treatments did not take place. This was just a place where you waited for your life to come to an end. Those were the words to me. I thought so as well. I'd felt it even before she'd spoken.
私
See, this is my second time. Second time doing what?
ここに来る
Coming here. Then she explained to me that nobody on 7F stayed from initial hospitalization all the way until death. While there was zero possibility of being cured, you were sent home if your condition was stable. But if it worsened again, you would be returned here. The cycle ended only in death. Whether it was at home or here on 7F, always one of the two, you were going to die. No way to escape it, it seemed. And with that meaning, per meeting, her every word, she informed me that this was her second time up
い
here.
や一度しか
I'm
言
only
わな
gonna
い
say
から
this
ここ
once,
から
so listen closely now. She continued speaking, all while staring at the blank TV screen. This wasn't idle chit-chat when lights out was, or when the kitchen was, or anything like that. This was something completely different. The third time you're discharged home, resign yourself. There won't be a fourth time. You'll never go home again. If you ever want to escape, head towards the B station, not the A station. Eat nothing. That is the simplest shortcut. You leave the smallest burden on your family that way. As if she was packed to the brim with matters like those. This was probably an oral tradition, relevant only to those who came here to die, and kept by those who came here only for that purpose. So is this the duty you were talking about? Yes, that's right.
いつかあなたも
So do remember to perform it for a newcomer yourself one day, okay? With those words, she slowly stood up and she casually tossed her long hair and it grazed my nose. I have to go get my temperature measured, so... Then she turned her back and started walking down the corridor. Now completely deserted, save for me, the lounge held only the laughter from the TV and the white flowers by the windowsill. Alright, so I think I'm going to stop this here. And I'm just going to quickly look at the others real quick, just to see if they're any different. Oops. There we go. Looks like they're all pretty similar tales of
じゃあ
probably sad
恐れ
stories about terminal illness and such. Yeah, they all look very similar. This one looks like it has more art style in the pictures, which looks really nice. Still very similar. Let's go ahead and exit out of this one. Oops. Trying to close that one. Make sure you want to quit. Yes. Let's look at the little iris. So yeah, it looks like the other ones have a little bit more like artistic vibe in the images. So Might be better to start with those, but I don't know. Looks like just a bunch of very sad tales about girls with illnesses or struggling with death in some way or another. So yeah, I think I'm going to end this here. If you like what you saw, be sure to check this game out on Steam. I'll leave a link in the description below. Again, it's called Narcissu 10th Anniversary Anthology. I think I completely mispronounced that, but oh well. And hope you guys have a nice day.